Hi, I'm Scott, and thank you very much for watching today.
Is there a God? There's really only one binary answer, yes or no. Logically, what other choice is there? So let's rationally take the argument for a second that there is no God, which also means suspending belief in the fact that God had, or people claimed that God had, revealed himself to us in the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim faiths. So if there is no God, then how did the universe come into existence? Because God is the creator of all existence. How did we come into existence? To our knowledge, everything, or everything but God, has a beginning and an end. Nothing is nothing. Assuming that everything else was created and everything will be destroyed, and atoms and elements flow through space to form new things like stars and quasars and planets. And Joe next door. Hi Joe. So if God didn't exist, assuming that there is actually an us and a universe in existence, and those atoms and elements I mentioned a second ago, and that if it didn't exist, then everything we conceive of existing, except God of course, would just be some creative fantasy by some omnipotent being. Oh, back to God. Something would have had to have created everything, but God I mean. So, there are really only two possible answers as to how the universe was created if you don't believe it was God. The first would be accidentally. However the universe was created, which we currently believe was the Big Bang, or if it had always existed in the first place, is beside the point. Some freak process created stuff. Lots of stuff. You, me, possible aliens on Alpha Centauri, your pet dog, or cat. Life, in other words. Whether a freak or rare accident, or a regular recurring process, something had to create life. We also know there's a lot of non-stuff in the universe, stuff like rocks and asteroids and planets and elements and atoms and suns and other stars. We know that, in comparison to life, non-life exists in much more abundance. Lots of stuff in the universe than life. So, it would be fair to say that life is rare in the universe compared to non-life. So if life is rare in the universe, which we believe it is, then how often does it happen, and are we alone in the universe? Some recent scientists have conceived of a theory that life began with the Earth sideswiping an object around the size of our moon millions of years ago, creating presumably the only C2 for conditions for life to be created. Explosion of stuff, the right temperatures, the perfect conditions, which led to atoms and molecules making the magic or miracle of life. Well, we already know that life is rare, and that the whole theory might be right, but that doesn't answer the question of what created non-life. If the Big Bang Theory is right, what created the Big Bang in the first place? Logically, the chances that something came from nothing and just created everything from nothing is so infinitesimally small as to be non-existent. So, what created the Big Bang? Or whom? God. What other reasonable and logical conclusion is there? Okay, so number 2. Let's pretend that God didn't create everything, then something or someone else had to have. Okay, well then what created them? Please go back to number 1. And hence, the infinite loop of existence. And hence, we've discovered God's most obvious lesson, the infinite loop. So God created everything, including the infinite loop. Kinda ironic, sounds like some British humor from Prophet Douglas Adams from his book, The Ultimate Question of Life, the Universe, and Everything. So I didn't answer why God created us life, the universe, and everything. The answer is 42, by the way. But I did prove the existence of God. Not that he, God has no gender, needed my proof. The infinite loop has been there since the beginning of the universe and maybe before that. I just wanted to go and show it to you. And I think that's enough for this one video. If you like this kind of stuff, please click like and subscribe. And let me know if you want a video on the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.